Hello, you're listening to the IoT Weekly Podcast. Hello and welcome to episode number 33 of the IoT Weekly Podcast, brought to you by Gearforge Software. My name is Matthew, and I'm joined by my co-host and good friend, Mr. Cliff.
Hey, Matthew. Hey, I'm doing great. Yourself?
I am doing well. It is a rainy, cloudy, humid day here in Minnesota, so not a bad one to spend at a keyboard.
No, not at all. It's I tell you, the dog days of summer have hit.
They really have, and it was a lot of fun last weekend floating on an inner tube down the Mississippi River with you. That was great.
I'm so happy you guys came over and decided to float and see the puppies.
Yeah, it was fantastic, super fun, some river living.
Yes.
So, Cliff, what other than floating on an inner tube down the river, what have you been up to?
I mean, that's not like a normal for everybody's everyday week.
Might not be for everyone, no.
No. So this week has really been focused on a lot of things, but probably more so Python this week. I've had a project I was just finishing up, quite a bit of Python, and one of the greatest things I love about some of the stuff we do here is around like DevOps, right, Matthew? Is just the deployment process that we build into our projects. I love the fact that I can run SSH, run a single file, and everything's done. Oh, the joy. It's just so nice.
Yeah, and I tell you, what a difference the cloud makes.
Isn't it?
Yeah, it wasn't that long ago that this wasn't nearly as accessible as it is today, right? Even for developers, hosting, a lot of times you might have had, your company might have had a server in a rack somewhere, like physical server, and somebody would have to go there with like a wrench, like what's wrong? I don't know. Maybe you better go restart the server. It's in the closet.
Oh, I remember that. And when I used to work over in London, the server room was right around the corner from the bathroom, and it's like, oh, we got a problem with our Oracle servers. So the database guy would go in there, and he would there's like a stack of physical tapes over in the corner too. He's like, oh, I got to run these off site today or every week. I don't know how often he did it, but it just cracked me up. And like physical stuff.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I remember one of the sysadmins showed up at one of the offices one day, and he forgot his toolkit. He didn't have his tool bag with him. So we're in downtown Minneapolis. Like, we walked to Target so that we could, unrack this server.
So, like, I need to go buy a couple of tools here, guys.
Yeah, like bloody knuckles type of work, right?
I know.
Now,
just ridiculous. Crazy.
Yeah. You get a AWS, you go to DigitalOcean, and you spin up a server. Or Azure. Yeah, don't want to leave Azure out.
Nope.
You spin up a server, and like 30 seconds later, you're deploying code.
I know. Connect it up to your Git repo, and away you go. It's just really cool. How about yourself, Matthew? What have you been up to?
Well, I mean, this week has been pretty heavy duty, but we've been doing some .NET Core,
nice.
Which we both go way back with .NET.
Yep.
Lots of ASP.NET, and I have been following this with great interest, but I haven't really had an opportunity to dive into anything. And man, have I had an opportunity this week.
Oh, nice. Well, you were talking about some of the versioning and some of these other things that you've been working through.
Honestly, we ran into some roadblocks, but generally speaking, I am pretty impressed. I think it's a good thing. I love the direction they're taking, and I think it's right. Based on the problems that they ran into in the past, just the fact that I'm running it on a Mac still amazes me.
So here's my question for you.
Yeah.
And for those of you that haven't heard, the new Mac is out, right? The new pricing.
Yeah.
So are you going to run out and buy a new Mac, Matthew?
Never again. No, for me, honestly, okay, it's crazy. I read last night that the new MacBook Pro is going to start at $2,700.
So
And
I'm
for
thinking
that,
$2,700. I should get a pretty beefy machine, right?
yeah, well, that's the entry level.
Oh boy.
And you know how many ports you have, how
I
many ports you want,
Well, let me see. I would like, let me count my ports I have right now that I'm using.
right?
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 on this Mac. I really need probably 7 because I've got my Mac keyboard with 2 more. So I mean, personally, I would love to have about 7 ports.
Yeah, I agree with that. And you know, I have a 2015 MacBook Pro,
Yep.
and I'm like a couple of USB ports shy of what I
Same
would
here.
like, right?
Yep.
And you know, this is the thing. It's like it is priced like the highest end workstation you could imagine,
So
but
well, I'm
it's not
comparing this. I
actually.
could probably get a nice Alienware, right, for something like
You would
this.
get a ridiculously powerful Windows rig if
Yeah.
you did this.
So I could do some pretty good gaming, I'm guessing, with 2,700
Yeah,
bucks.
yeah, it's crazy. And you know, for that though, like I want it to have everything. Like I want all the ports I could need. I don't really particularly care that it's slim and that it's got stainless steel, but you know, give me a workstation that's actually going to work. Like something.
So you're
Hey,
saying this thing has 0 ports?
I mean, it's basically just that USB system that they've got. So
So you're
USB,
saying I have to now buy
you're going to have
additional
dongles.
dongles
Yeah.
beyond, like, the existing dongles I've bought won't work now, right?
Not only that, Cliff,
Oh my
but you
God.
will also get instead of a handy physical keys, you're going to get a touch screen
What?
for your little, you know, your little F keys, your function keys. That's
Oh,
gone,
that just sounds like such a bad idea.
doesn't it? I mean,
Like, I
yeah,
use F12 all the time.
all the time. F5,
Yeah.
constantly F5. I don't get it. I feel like they've abandoned the developer market.
Hmm.
And that's fine because Microsoft is making up for it. And for me, so the next workstation
Well, I
I
mean,
need
they're making probably some of the best cheese slicers you can buy on the market at this point.
it's a toss up for me if my next workstation will be a Linux rig from System 76 or maybe one of those Dell XPS developer editions
Sure.
or the Linux line they're doing, or a Windows 10, like just a nice workstation with Windows 10. But you know, I want to have a dock.
Hmm.
Like if it's going to be a laptop, I want to have a dock. Like these seem like really basic requirements for me
I think
for a
so. Yeah.
developer setup. So I don't know what Mac is or what Apple is thinking.
Yeah, I don't know, because I mean, I operate with 2 additional screens. They're like 24-inch monitors, so they. I love having my additional capabilities, and you just need, and I like the fact that I can actually plug in a physical LAN,
Hmm.
because some of the volume of data that we have to push out many times,
Hmm.
it's much nicer to be able to connect up directly to our network here versus
Ethernet,
trying to do
yeah,
Wi-Fi or anything else. So
yeah, totally agree.
yeah, it makes more
Well,
sense from that.
even my existing MacBook Pro, you know, it's got all the ports, but it's even a little clunky with that. Like,
Mhm.
you know, it's fine. It was at the time sort of the best option, but the way Microsoft's going, I feel like they've really caught up to a usable, you know, usable for developers environment. And quite frankly, it's like I spend all my time dealing with Linux anyway. So for
Yep.
workstation, that might actually just make more sense.
Well, for those of you that are really wanting it, so you can spend out 2,700 bucks for the lower level, and then just over 6 grand for the kind of the souped up model of the MacBook Pro. So, and you get a handy dandy configurable touchscreen F keys. So,
Ooh,
yeah, you can
can't do
build in.
without that.
No,
Yeah,
no,
it's
I can like
what
build in my own
six
emojis.
ninety nine if you soup it up to the full
Yeah,
everything.
it's pretty pricey. I mean, I can get 3 PCs for that.
Well, half of that price is SSD. I think the max is out at 4 terabyte SSD,
Yeah. Yep.
which is 3,200 bucks.
Which is ridiculous.
It is ridiculous. All
So,
right.
and you
Well,
can't.
what fun.
Yeah, so we probably beat that a little bit, but I think that's an interesting piece for those of you that leverage the Mac and kind of direction of where things are going to be headed here.
And you know, Cliff, I'm the one that convinced you to buy a MacBook Pro?
I bought stock at the same time, Matthew, so I'm going to
Did
be
you?
really upset if my stock tanks. I want to blame you.
Yeah, you probably should. Yeah, I'm very unhappy with where that has all gone, and I won't be buying another. So
That's
easy
unfortunate.
enough.
Well, um, any feedback, Matthew, that you're aware of?
Not that I'm aware of, but
Okay.
if you do have feedback, we do have places for you to get in touch. You can
Really?
contact us at podcast@gearforgesoftware.com, or we're on Twitter at Gearforge IoT, and we would love to hear from you. Just any message is great.
And we've got a real person, not a bot, sitting behind our Twitter account. So
Yes, we do.
feel free to message us. Her name is Zainab, and she manages it really well and pushes out some amazing articles each week for you to follow, and just some really funny memes on top of that.
Yeah, and you hear her on this podcast every few episodes. So
Exactly.
yeah, join us again for one of those. And so, Cliff, do we have a sponsor?
We sure do, Matthew. Our sponsor is Gearforge Software. They're an IoT consultant that works with companies that are ready to make their company smart. If you are looking for a partner that will live, eat, and breathe your project, then look no further than Gearforge Software. You can learn more at gearforgesoftware.com.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
All right. Well, maybe it's time for some non-Apple news.
On to the news.
On to the news. So I wanted to talk today about an article that, boy, I think I actually saw it on Twitter because Zainab had tweeted it. But it's by Teena Maddox from Tech Republic, and it is about a new effort that's happening in Portland, where basically they are installing IoT sensors. It looks like these are based on Intel technology at some of the deadliest intersections in the city. So kind of an interesting effort. And, I think this is consistent with that trend towards sort of the smart cities movement.
Yeah.
Yeah. It sounds like they've got $1 million probably invested into this, which is not nothing. And basically,
No.
the traffic engineers are going to use this data to help sort of figure out how to better design, streets and corners and all of that, and trying to make the streets safer for everybody, drivers and pedestrians.
Yeah.
It's kind of an interesting effort. And it sounds like this is sort of new, I guess. Not many cities have really tried this so far. So it's a pilot program, and maybe other cities will pick this up along the way.
Yeah, I think it's and they built it, from what I can read, actually, Matthew, to handle future growth. So they're using the same street lighting infrastructure, because I have to think through that. It's got to be super expensive if you're trying to put up new poles and things like that. However, leveraging your infrastructure that you already have as far as wiring and conduit and everything else is going to save quite a bit. So they're calling it CityIQ is their open platform.
And what does open mean?
I don't know. The article didn't actually say what that actually meant, because I was like, what? Open? I don't know. It says open platform, but I assume their goal is probably to keep it closed, so that way you don't have hackers.
That's what I was thinking.
Monitoring and if it can track the individuals and things like that, that'd be a consumer or kind of personal type scenario.
Yeah, well, this is CityIQ by GE, right?
Yeah.
That's what it is. I wonder.
I'm wondering if open platform is just one of those terms for saying, hey, you can interconnect.
Yeah.
It's interoperable, right? It's easier to say than interoperable. So it's just a synonymous with being able to hook up different type of information.
Yeah, looking just briefly, not doing deep dive on the website, it doesn't look like it's certainly not advertising itself as being open source or anything like that. It looks like a proprietary system.
Yeah, that's what I'm guessing. That would make more sense to me.
One thing that I don't see is what they're actually monitoring.
I don't know what it is actually.
Yeah, it says these sensors powered by Intel IoT technology. They're on smart light fixtures in the deadliest streets in the cities, but it doesn't actually say what they're monitoring.
I thought it talked about people, bicycles, and vehicles is what it said.
But what data
Oh,
is it?
yeah, yeah.
You know what I mean? Yeah,
Yeah,
the
so the
screen. Yeah,
sensors,
let's
the sensors
monitor all
will
the
provide
bicycles.
data on the number of vehicles and pedestrians as well as vehicle speeds is what I
Yeah.
see here. So is it just a simple
What?
counter with
Right.
speed sensors?
Yeah. What is it they're actually monitoring
Yeah,
here?
because I think you'd want to overlay that with maybe other information. I would be curious about weather.
Mhm.
Like weather, I think would be a really good one. And then if this is actually a fixed intersection, like with lights, I'd want to know kind of what was the position of those lights when those folks were moving and things like that.
Well, what
And
about luminosity?
I was just going to say, like,
Yeah.
was the sun up? Was it down? How bright? Things of that sort.
Yeah, well, it's a cloudy day, let's say, it's
Yeah.
Portland,
Yep.
you know, and are accidents more likely on a cloudy day or on a bright sunny day,
Yeah. I would think this would
right?
be pretty straightforward to, I would think, just enriching the data, right?
Yeah,
Once
I
you get it
just
out
wish they
there.
gave us a little bit more information on what was actually being monitored.
Yeah, and maybe they don't quite have that figured out.
That might be, we're installing sensors, and those are in
Yeah.
quotes,
Yes.
air
We're
quotes.
installing the
Sensors.
smart city. This is what's
They've
going
got,
to happen.
they hired 200 employees. They're going to stand at the corner with
Yes.
a clipboard.
Yep. They have little clickers. Click, 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 click.
Yeah, exactly.
Yes, that's exactly what it is. Huh.
Oh, man.
Oh,
So
funny.
the next article that we wanted to talk about today, I think is kind of interesting. It comes to us from IoTforall.com, and is about supply, like component shortages, basically,
Yeah.
um, which honestly is something I hadn't been thinking about a whole lot, except that I have absolutely been seeing this happen
Hmm.
over the last year
Hmm.
with clients, basically.
We
Uh,
both have been seeing this, and I think sourcing has become a bigger issue as we keep moving forward, and the lead time seems to keep growing.
Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, we've definitely seen clients who are trying to get relatively common components
Yep.
in relatively small quantities. Not we're talking about maybe thousands, but not, like tens of
Yeah.
thousands.
And just so everybody's aware of what we're talking about, like sourcing, if you're not familiar with that, that's the concept of where are you going to get this particular, let's say, a capacitor, or maybe you're not so low level. Where am I going to get this luminosity sensor, right?
Hmm.
For I need 1,000 of those. So
Well,
can
yeah, it's
I
one
get
thing.
1,000 of those from this supplier, and can I ensure that every single one of these are exactly the same from a quality standpoint?
Yeah, and it's one thing for prototyping, right? Yeah, you can
Total.
definitely get a
Yeah, because a lot of
few.
it's like, here's 20, we've got 20 on hand, right?
I want exactly that component. It
Hmm.
needs to be exactly that one because that's the one I've tested, but now I need 10,000.
Well, if
And
you
that's
remember
where
in our
falls through.
conversation with Helium, remember he said we can only produce this many because we bought up every single one of those components that we need.
Yep, absolutely. And we've seen that also, even things as common as RFID tags,
Yeah.
just they're not there.
Well, and everybody's wanting to use those RFID, Bluetooth or BLE, Bluetooth Low Energy. I mean, we're seeing this across the board.
So it's interesting. This article kind of dives into a few common, reasons why this might be the case. And one of the things they call out is the trend towards electric vehicles. So the article says, a standard combustion engine car has between 2,000 and 3,000 capacitors, whereas an electric vehicle has like 22,000.
That's insane.
And so as that market grows,
Yep.
like they're
And we expect that
sucking up
market to
components.
just keep growing.
Yeah, absolutely. And another one is smartphones. So the flagship smartphones, flagship models contain about 1,000 capacitors, let's say.
And there's 1.5 billion smartphones manufactured each year.
Yeah. So that's crazy. So basically, right now, an estimated 3 trillion capacitors are built every year. So half of those go to the smartphone market.
Isn't that insane?
That is crazy, right?
Yeah, that is
Um,
just wild.
and that's still growing. And then there's IoT. So, all the IoT devices, and as that grows, that's sucking up components. And it seems like we're going to see this, right?
Mm-hmm.
We're going to see maybe it might be harder to launch some devices because component shortages. I don't know.
Well, and I think one thing to think through too is I am betting, and we've seen this, right?
Mm-hmm.
As some of these items, right? Let's say they get a little older and maybe they start getting sunsetted per se, right? I've got to guess that legacy type products are going to get harder to find, and we've seen that.
Yeah, and that's what the article is indicating too. The manufacturers are going to go to the direction of where the profit margin is, which is going to be the newer items.
Yep.
And legacy items might just get dropped, and so you won't be able to. You've got a design, you won't be able to manufacture anymore.
Yeah.
You can't
Yeah.
get the parts.
You're going to have to go back to the board and start rethinking it. So that's significant. Anytime you've got to redeploy the hardware, that I don't take that lightly. That's got to be a solid component.
Yeah, it's really interesting, and again, it's just something. Yeah, remember when we covered the article on sort of IP piracy in China?
Yep. Yeah.
It was just something that I hadn't spent a lot of time thinking about. It's like, of course, I know that's going on, but I hadn't thought about, you send your bomb to a manufacturer in China, and that they are going to just straight up copy it. you know, and this is another one that I've seen the symptoms, but I hadn't really thought about. Of course, as all of these industries grow, we are going to see component shortages. It's just natural, and we'll catch up eventually.
Yep.
But it's very.
Yeah, I thought this was really good, and I think the key thing I always take away from this is the concept of where do you source your components, and can you ensure that you're giving yourself enough lead time, and making sure that when your supplier says 4 to 6 weeks, they actually are valid with the 4 to 6 weeks, right?
Yeah, and again, we have seen this with some products, not ones that we directly are, the sort of designers or manufacturers of, but that we have insight into, I guess. That it just the difference between, you've got the perfect part for prototyping, but you cannot source it for production. It's just not in quantity.
Not at all.
So your choices are limited. It's like you've got to either manufacture it or have it manufactured, or find an alternative.
Yeah. So this is really, I think we'll probably see a few more of these popping up as we go, because the demand is only increasing.
Yeah, it's very interesting.
Mm-hmm.
So Cliff, what's going on in Azure?
Oh,
yeah.
Sure. That sounds like a fancy somewhere I'd go to, like, on vacation.
It's like a fancy restaurant.
It is kind of like a fancy restaurant.
It's a club.
Going to Azure. Oh,
yeah, we went to Azure on Friday night.
Well, that sounds like a lot of fun. I'm so jealous of Azure. Actually, this comes from us from ZDNet. It's by
Mary Jo.
Yeah, Mary Jo, for All About Microsoft. The article itself is Microsoft's Azure Edge, or Azure. I always tend to say it wrong. Azure IoT Edge, now generally available, is key to Redmond's IoT strategy. So what they're saying is that the IoT Edge service came out, probably was it a year ago, roughly, if I remember correctly. It is now widely available for folks to use. They've actually open sourced the product, so you can actually now get it off of GitHub, and especially since they own GitHub, that helps. But the product is available now, and it's out, and it is ready to be leveraged. So they've added quite a bit of stuff. So the big thing is, number one, they've open sourced it. They've supported Moby container management, so Docker, right? Moby is an open source platform for Docker. So now you can do Docker-based systems. And now they have an entire ecosystem of certified hardware and software for the edge. So they're pushing really hard for this. What I think is really fun, or we talked before about them making a $5 billion investment. Do you remember that, Matthew? That was
yeah, I do.
a while ago.
Yeah.
But this is part of that, really focusing on the edge, and thinking like, how do we create hardware to cloud solutions at scale? So that's one of the key parts. I do want to throw in that if you're curious about actually getting the IoT sphere, have you heard of that, Matthew, at all?
Mm-hmm. Yep. Sphere
Yeah.
OS, right?
Yep. So Azure Sphere, um, you can. They have them available. It's a prototype kit, so it's an edge computing device, and it's from Microsoft, which I think is very cool. You can actually buy those. They're pre-order right now. It looks like they're going to be rolling out in September. They're $5 each. So it'd be a really pretty simple way to start thinking about doing some prototyping, leveraging their own actual hardware. I am going to put a link to, if you want to get some IoT Edge hardware. There's an actual catalog from an Azure standpoint or Azure. And you can pick these up. And I mean, the Raspberry Pi is Pi 3 is an example where you can leverage some of the technology in that. And there's a whole bunch of different devices in here and dev boards and things like that. So I'll put a link in our show notes. That way, if you'd like to go out there and play with this, you're more than welcome to do that.
Yeah, that's fantastic.
Yep. So
Very
I
cool.
think the one thing too I did want to throw out is their broad language support. So do you want to guess? I'm going to give you so you ready for guessing, Matthew?
I am so ready.
Okay, so I'm going to do a little trivia. So the Azure IoT Edge supports more language than other Edge offerings today, all right, which includes 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So 5 languages. Can you name those 5?
Okay, just for clarity, we're talking about programming languages.
Yep, programming languages.
Okay, all right. Here we go.
Yep.
So this is okay. So this is for the Azure Sphere.
No, this is for the
Uh,
Azure IoT Edge.
oh, this is for the Azure IoT
Yep,
Edge.
back to the Azure IoT Edge.
Okay.
Yep.
All right. So we're server side here then. Are
Yeah.
we? Or are we client side?
I think it could go either way.
Okay. So I'm going to say, so if it's client side, I'm going to say C is supported.
Yep, ding ding, there's one.
Okay. It's Microsoft, so C# has got to be supported.
Yep, C# is in there, ding ding, that's 2.
I'm going to say that Python is everywhere because
You got Python. Gosh, you are hot, Matthew.
I'm going to say that JavaScript is supported because JavaScript is
hold on.
taking over the world.
Well, let's take a little higher level up from JavaScript.
Like Node?
Yes, there you go.
Yeah,
so
okay.
Node.js. It's
Okay.
JavaScript, essentially. So ding ding, there's 4. And last one.
F#.
No, well,
F#.
Let me take it back. I am surprised by this one.
Oh, really? Okay. Oh, that's interesting. Let me hold on. Let me think for a minute. Something
If
that
you
would
need
be
a hint, I can give you a hint.
No, let me. I'm gonna go with either. It's either Golang or Rust. One of those two.
Nope, neither one of those.
Okay. Give me a hint. Yeah.
I enjoy my coffee every morning.
Java.
Yes, Java.
No way.
I was surprised with Java. So most of you know Java and Oracle. So I was really surprised that Java was included.
You know, that's not surprising to me, actually. I mean, it's surprising in that C# is like very much a direct competitor, but Java is so huge in the enterprise space that I'm sure they want adoption. And so, you know, by not supporting Java, they cut out like 2/3 of the enterprise.
Of course. Yeah. When I was cutting my teeth, it was like, well, either you're going to go Java or you're going to go C#.
Yeah.
So in most cases, you end up learning both languages. But I mean, that's where things were at when I first got started.
That's really interesting. That is a lot of support.
I was really surprised, but I think they've really got some great bases covered. I mean, you can drop down to C anytime you want. So that way, if you really need to get some low level, but otherwise, stick in the Python or Node.js, or if you're familiar with the C# and the Java, play in those. I was really surprised at the number of languages.
Yeah, that's interesting. And you know what? Let's just take a look at that here for a minute, because we really commonly use, well, Python and Node.js for sure, and both of us have a background in C#.
Yeah.
So you know, it's pretty good coverage. I do think it's interesting how Python is just everywhere now. It's just everywhere.
Yes.
Everybody supports Python.
I would
It's
never have I would never have guessed Python of all things.
Yeah, it is. It is just universal. The
Mhm.
popularity of that language.
Yeah.
Very interesting. Well, that was fun.
It's super
Feedback.
fun. Great job there, Matthew.
Hey, thanks.
Top notch. So well done. But I was so on a side note, we did order up some of our own Azure Sphere devices. So we will let you know how those work out when we get those. And it looks pretty interesting. There are quite a few GPIOs, so programmable IOs, and it looks like they also have some analog inputs. It looked like 4 or 5 on the headers. So
Yeah, and what's interesting about this offering is the claim, at least related to security. So they have been very focused, I guess, on the security aspect. And if I remember correctly, that Azure Sphere OS wasn't that the one that they had? Uh, Basically, they'd taken some of the techniques that they've used for securing the Xbox
hmm
and basically replayed those for IoT, I
Yep.
think. So that's been their big focus, and it'll be interesting to see how that plays out in the marketplace.
Yeah, and that's one of the big components when I talk to folks is in many cases, it's like, yeah, that's fine pushing information, but many cases what we need to be able to do is store information on the device in case of, for some reason, connectivity goes down.
Mhm.
But at the same time, a lot of them are like, hey, why we should be doing like some of the edge computing and stuff like that before we even set it up. So maybe we can reduce packet size, like going into the cloud when it comes from some of these type of sensors. So you can compute a lot more on the device.
Oh, that's
So
interesting.
yeah, that's one of the things I've been hearing, and probably the biggest is security, Matthew.
Really?
Yeah,
In
because
IoT?
yeah, I know that's super surprising. But of
Yeah,
course,
it's yeah. It seems like that is the common theme, isn't it?
well, and that's has a lot of people in many other cases. If you're running a home style network, like I don't care. But if you're running a nuclear power plant or even a just your normal kind of power supply company, you are not going to want to like open up your network whatsoever.
No, not at all.
So
Oh,
that's
that's
that's a
interesting.
pretty big deal.
Well, that's it for our articles for this week. If you've
hmm
got any feedback, you can shoot us a message. We are on email at podcast@gearforgesoftware.com or on Twitter at GearforgeIoT, and we'd love to hear from you.
hmm
So, Cliff, do you have anything fun planned for the weekend?
Well, I'm gonna spend a little time with my wife on Saturday.
Mhm.
We are getting pedicures. I think that has something to do with your feet.
Yes, I think
And
you're right.
yep, I think that's the feet one. And some sort of wax dip. I'm not entirely certain. A little anxious about that.
What are you
Um,
dipping?
I'm so I'm thinking like your feet, but
Hmm.
I'm hoping it's just my feet.
It's part of the pedicure, is that?
That's what I'm hearing. I'm just hoping this isn't like a ploy to like, oh, we're gonna get your back wax is really what this is, Cliff.
Just they just dip you like the back half of you into the wax.
Yeah, exactly.
Flagella.
I don't even know if that's what you do when you get waxed. I have no idea. So,
Yeah. Well,
I
you
don't
can
know.
tell us next week.
Yeah, I'll let you know, and maybe I'll try to get some pictures for Twitter. But it should be interesting. How about yourself, Matthew? You getting a pedicure this weekend?
I am not. We're planning a boys' weekend, so my wife will be in Duluth this weekend, and so my son, who's 12, and I will be bumming around the house, and we're planning to do some geeky things, like probably watch a movie, maybe The Matrix. I've been pushing that one,
Oh,
um,
just watch
and
all of them. You got to just do like a marathon.
exactly. That's probably exactly what's going to happen, and maybe some really geeky stuff like perhaps some Dungeons and Dragons or
Oh,
something.
that's great. It's usually
Yeah.
like boys' weekends usually like bad food and lots of fun with video games and just raw games and movies.
Yeah.
Oh, I love those weekends.
Yeah, we're gonna go get a pizza tomorrow, and yeah,
Oh,
fun
yes,
times. It's been a
yes.
while too since I've spent like the whole weekend with Cal, so that'll be good.
Sounds like a lot of fun. Have fun.
Yeah, thanks. Well, folks, thanks so much for listening, and we hope you'll join us again for next week's show. Until then, so long and be well.
Take care,
Bye,
everyone.
Cliff.
Bye, Matthew.